So today what we're going to do is talk about profit maximization in what we call competitive markets. So as we'll see throughout the semester, we're going to study a couple of markets that really end up bounding the competitive spectrum of market structures. So over here in the most competitive are competitive markets, which we're going to talk about today, and then in the least competitive spectrum are monopolies. But that's neither here nor there for right now. That's kind of a big picture thing that we want to understand. So what we want to do today is understand what markets are going to do in these competitive markets, what firms are going to do in competitive markets to maximize profits. Now, what we have to understand in competitive markets is that firms can't control price. So price is established by the supply and demand forces that we studied earlier in the semester. So if I'm a firm in this competitive market and I have a cost structure that looks like this, I have to figure out what's my output going to be in order to maximize profit given the price that the market is cleared at. So imagine I'm this firm, right? I'm part of this supply, this market supply, and there's a demand for a product, and we've got the market in equilibrium at 25. So price equals 25. With this information given, I can't control this. I would like to charge a higher price if I'm a firm in a competitive market. I can't because of the simple fact that if I try to charge a price higher than the market clearing price, no one's going to buy that good. I wouldn't be profit maximizing if I'm going to charge a price less than 25. So this is where I'm stuck at. This is the best I can do in terms of price. Now I have to figure out what quantity to produce in order to profit maximize. So before we get into that, let's understand here that the profit function is revenue minus total costs, and I can rewrite revenue as price times output, and then subtract off costs. So we'll always think of profit as that, revenue minus cost, and this is the choice that a firm in a competitive market gets to make. That's chosen for them by the market in which they're existing. Now there's a couple ways we can do this, but the simplest way to do this is to understand that the firm in a competitive market see this variable called marginal revenue as being price. So given the assumption we've made here that P equal 25, for all the firms in this market, marginal revenue is 25. So marginal revenue is the change in revenue given the fact the firm's going to sell one more good. Right? Every time this firm sells a good, they're changing revenue by 1. So let's go ahead and think about this in a couple of different ways in order to maximize profit. The first thing we want to do is calculate total costs, calculate revenue, and then calculate profit. And then we can scan across all the different rows here, all the different possible output combinations we can come up with, and figure out which one maximizes profit. So remember, total cost is the sum of fixed costs and variable costs. So I'm just going to sum these together. So now I've got total cost. Revenue is price times quantity. So I'm going to multiply the price of 25 by each of these different outputs to get revenue. Notice every time that this firm chooses to produce another good, revenue is changing by 25. The marginal revenue is 25 given the price structure in the market. So now I can figure out what profit is because I've got revenue and I've got total cost, so I can just subtract this entry from this entry to figure out what profit is. So if this firm decides to produce 6 goods, right, its profit is going to be 150 minus 38, or 12. Now let's see, if this firm decides to produce 7 goods, is 7 going to give them a higher profit than 6? If it does, we'd expect them to produce 7 goods. Let's see, revenue is 175, total cost is 158. That means profit is 17. 17 is better than 12. So we would expect them to produce 7 goods rather than 6. Now let's look at 8 here. 200 is revenue, total cost is 180, so profit's 20. 20 is better than 17, so we'd expect them to produce 8 goods, not 7. If we do the same thing with Q equal 9, profit goes up again, so we'd expect them to produce 9 goods, not 8. And then if we do the same thing with 10 goods, we get a profit of 20. So we're going to expect them to produce 9 goods. Given the calculations we've done in each of these different possible output levels, 21 is the best they can do. We're going to expect this firm to maximize profit, so we're going to expect them to produce 9 goods. Now let's think about this a little bit differently though. Let's think about this in terms of the relationship between marginal revenue and marginal cost. And we want to produce so long as marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost. So the rule we can come up with here, if marginal revenue exceeds marginal cost, then we'd expect for the firm to produce that good. Right? And we're going to continue to produce so long as marginal revenue exceeds marginal cost. We're going to use this rule and we're going to come up with the same output level that we did when we compared profit across all these output levels. So let's see here. We know our marginal revenue equals 25. 25 is greater than 18. So we're going to expect them to produce 6 goods. 25 is greater than 20. So we'd expect them to produce 7 goods. 25 is greater than 22. So we'd expect them to produce 8 goods. 25 is greater than 24, so we'd expect them to produce the 9th good. And then you see here 25 is less than 26, so this firm's going to stop at producing 9 goods. Same conclusion that we reached earlier, right? And what we don't have to do here, what this understanding of this critical rule allows us to do, is not calculate all those profit levels that we did earlier. What this allows us to do is just compare what the firm sees as the benefit of production versus the cost of production on the margins, and we can figure out where they're going to stop producing. So we know that this firm is a profit maximizing firm. Q is going to equal 9, and profit equals 25. I'm sorry, profit equals 21 when they do that. Graphically, what's going on here so we have looked at the costs that firms face in a graphical sense. So we want to include marginal revenue in this. Marginal revenue is a constant. Every time they sell this good, revenue increases by the same amount. So we draw constants on a graph as a straight line. So we know that marginal revenue is 25, right? Because supply and demand forces are acting on that market to produce, to have price equal to 25. And now what this firm wants to do graphically is keep producing so until marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and that happens to be at that output level right there. So Q star is going to maximize profit. And then we can figure out what profit is. Remember, profit equals revenue minus total cost, and we know that revenue is price times quantity. So let's see, price by quantity. We've got the price here. Right, that's 25. We've got the quantity from the origin up to the Q star there, output level. So let's call this ABCD. We'll call that revenue. And then the cost, right? We've done this in class 2. Cost is going to be given by this rectangle, which I'll call DCEF. And so I'm left with this rectangle here, AFBE. This rectangle AFBE tells me what profit is. And given the market structure that we've looked at here, this rectangle has an area equal to 21, given the fact that price equals 25 and the cost structure of the firm that we've looked at here. But this rectangle AFBE has the dimensions, has an area equal to profit. Now what this is going to mean for the firm in the future, what this is going to mean for the market in the future, profit's greater than 0, so we're going to expect some entry to occur in this market. People are going to see economic profits greater than 0, and they're going to want to try to compete away some of those profits. So in the next time period, we're going to expect supply to increase and price to fall and profit to fall towards 0. In competitive markets, that's the natural tendency, is the economic profit gets bid out of the market, and once profit equals 0, the market's said to be in short-run equilibrium. Now we're going to look in class at a few other possibilities here. We're going to see where profit equals 0. We're going to see where profit is less than 0. And when profit's less than 0, we have to be aware of the fact that it might be best for the firm to produce with a loss, or it might be best for the firm to shut down, in which case profit is just going to equal negative fixed costs. So in class, we'll look at a couple of other situations here. What this video is allowing you to see is this critical rule that marginal revenue has to be greater than marginal cost in order for firms to produce. We use that rule to figure out that this firm wants to produce 9 goods. That's going to be profit maximizing for it. Once we've figured out that profits were greater than 0, then we can make some forecasts about what's going to happen in this market once people figure out that this is an economically profitable venture to be in.